and so that the meeting is conducted accordingly and in order. We can begin with, I don't know if many of you had an opportunity to follow what went on with the Sports Authority, where the bond was increased. I know some of you had some questions as it relates to that. At this point, if we can have finance just give us an update as to where we are and where the deal stands as it relates to the figures, and then we can proceed accordingly with any additional questions. It's not on. Okay. So for the Director Lomax O'Neill will give us an update.
Yeah, in terms of process, the resolution has been through the Sports Authority as well as the Fair Board of Commissioners, and the next step will be for this body to consider the resolutions that are before you. Did I get all that right, John?
Up to 200.
And it's up to $225 million. I don't think that they approved any type of an increase. They approved what was recommended.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll recap what Director Lomax O'Neill just indicated, that the approval has gone through the Fair Board and through the Sports Authority up to $225 million. Did I say it correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Of revenue bonds. So now we'll go ahead and open up the floor for any questions. Councilman Leonardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the guarantees debt as opposed to just corporate guarantors.
Yes, we expect to receive a document this week that will be presented to the council.
Give me one moment, Director Lomax O'Neill. So the question is, state it again.
Are we any closer to getting personal guarantors?
Are we any closer to getting personal guarantors as opposed to corporate surety as it relates to the deal?
We are negotiating some guarantee language right now. We're in the process of it, and there will be something presented to you this week.
So we're in the process of, according to Attorney John Cooper, they're in the process of negotiating that. Council Lady Allen, I believe you were next.
I have 24 questions. Or just take a few and come back later.
No, just as long as your questions are not repeat questions, what has already been provided to finance. That's the purpose of the meeting. As I indicated earlier, we should have already reviewed those materials. So are these new questions?
Yes, they're new questions. So number one, there is a reference in the first whereas about this, how the particular arrangement we're looking at lowers interest rates. As opposed to, I'm not sure what the
We'll have Attorney Cooper to address that. Attorney Cooper, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
By pledging the non-tax revenues, that makes the bonds more marketable because it ensures that there's a, you get a better grade on the bonds.
Okay. And then there was a similar question about what else has been guaranteed by non-tax revenue. How much has been guaranteed by non-tax revenue?
Well, it's you look at what the annual debt service is that is pledged by those, and each of those bond issues has a coverage requirement that the non-tax revenues have to be X times the debt coverage. In this case, it's 2 times the obligation, and we're well within our ability to do that.
And I would add that our financial advisor looks very, very closely at those coverage ratios.
Okay. Soccer, which I appreciate.
just a statement of what this MLS deal could possibly do for women's soccer in the future. This was important to at least one member of the Sports Authority, which was acknowledged at their meeting. So it's a statement of desire and intent. It could be any of those 20 public use days. I mean, the team will have the ability to bring in other events, and I would assume that that would include women's soccer. But the team would need to address that, though.
Reference to selling either taxable or non-taxable bonds and
Depends on what the use of the funds will be. So in this case, you'll have probably two series. You'll have a taxable series, which will be most of the bonds, and then a non-taxable that will be the remainder. And the part that is used, it's essentially used for private use. The COO just reminded me that that's how we did First Tennessee Park, because it's the revenues generated there at the facility that are paying the debt service. The only non-tax or tax-exempt piece will be the sales tax component. All the rest of it, the ticket tax, also, which the lease payments are the bulk of it. It's a redirect of all of it generated there at the stadium. That's the same for the Titans Stadium and the Sounds Ballpark, First Tennessee.
there is, in section 4, there's a reference to this being substantially the same intergovernmental agreement. If there are changes made that are
There will be we will recommend an amendment that clarifies that it could not be a material change. Beyond that would require separate approval. Yes, essentially. I mean,
okay. I had, so it's also a reference to the $4 million minimum. Does that also include the sales tax part? Not just the ticket tax?
Correct.
It's a combination of those two. In all cases, they're
correct. We're essentially guaranteeing that the combined, the sales taxes and the ticket tax will be at least $4 million in the first 5 years. If they are not, then we would make up the difference from the general fund.
after 10 years, the first 5 years, the next 5 years, after that, we're still responsible for
No, we would have no, it's, essentially we're responsible for the debt if the debt didn't get paid. But the lease payments and the tax and sales tax revenues will pay all of that debt service. We're not guaranteeing any portion of that after the 10 years.
Okay.
No, these are just, the Sports Authority will just be issuing revenue bonds.
So any reference in the intergovernmental
That would be a subsequent spending plan.
Okay. Fairgrounds improvement and 25 million, that my understanding was infrastructure. Is that infrastructure only within the fairgrounds, or would that include like the interstate?
That would be on-site infrastructure necessary for the stadium, roads, sewers,
All within-
sidewalks.
Within the fairgrounds. So when there was a division of 25 million and 25 million, that was between structure and roads?
No, the other 25 million is to redo and rebuild all of the existing fairgrounds facilities.
Reference to, using the sale of franchise goods that are sold, sales tax on that as part of the payment. Is that simply what is sold on site, or does that mean that somebody downtown starts selling goods?
The way the state law is written, and this applies to not just this facility, but this would be the other sports facilities in the state as well, it's all sales tax on all merchandise sold within the county. Now, I'm not sure how the state calculates that or figures that, but that's the way it's written.
That's
What
something we do with all the.
we're saying is that this pledge will be subordinate to the other non-tax revenue pledges that have already been made for the convention, the Music City Center, and then some on the stadium.
First Metro Surplus Revenue Fund, for any payment of non-tax revenues up to said amount.
The amount collected, right? Whatever's collected.
Right. So when we issue $50 million
Yes, that'll be included. That'll be included in any subsequent capital spending plan.
have you been given the information, and do you think that'll be?
What?
Yeah. Oh, it's working.
Thank you for being so patient. We have it back.
We're estimating that'll probably be about $3 million.
$3 million.
Yeah.
That's helpful. So in terms of our total annual debt service, the GO bond part of it, which is what we're actually paying for, is a $3 million addition to what is essentially 200 million something now. So it's fairly small. That's helpful to know. Okay. Okay, I have a copy of the Fairgrounds Master Plan that we, as a council, got asked for and received in 2013. There were several different options, but I think as a city, we have kind of said we're keeping the racetrack and we're staying on site. So does this fit into that master plan or work with it? And I'm not sure who that question is directed at.
That's probably best for Laura to answer. She's back in the back.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, actually, it does. The site plan that we're looking at now, it looks to go next to the racetrack. So that facility, the stadium, and then reconstructing all of the expo building space can definitely fit up on that hill.
And then the mixed-use component that we haven't really talked about yet, does that fit into the master plan?
We're working out the details on that. We actually have a meeting. I know that that was something that you all expressed interest in at our last presentation here to you. And we're going to be meeting with the MLS team and developers tomorrow to work through. So really within the next few days, we hope to have a lot more information about that 10-acre development.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then somewhere along the line, there was a mention of $25 million in cash in addition to all this other funding. Is that still out there, and what does it get allocated for?
That would go towards the stadium costs.
That's part of the construction cost?
Correct.
That they're covering. Okay, thank you. I have one last question. No, that's it. That was most of what I wanted to know. I think the other question that I had just kind of in general is, this started because a group of people said they really wanted to bring soccer to Nashville. And we have a whereas in here that says, whereas they need inducement to do this. So can someone talk me through why we feel like we need to further induce the folks who are eager to bring soccer to Nashville? How did the mixed-use development come to be needed to be part of this? I mean, I have lots of people that are enthusiastic about it, and I'm glad we're exploring it. I just need to be comfortable with how that became necessary.
I thought I was in retirement, but they pulled me back to come back. Yes, you're right. The soccer began with a group of citizens who said they want to bring MLS to Nashville, and we've gotten to this point now because they have put together a group, found an owner who's interested in doing it, and we're at this place. The basis of this transaction is that in order to make this, to get a franchise, we have to have a stadium. That's required under MLS rules. And so we've negotiated over the last few months a transaction which we think is very fair to Nashville and good for the citizens of Nashville and to lead to a soccer development. So as we walked into, and Council Lady, as you've been here for a few years, this is a different structure than we've done on a lot of these other projects, and one which we believe is much more favorable to the city in terms of its obligations and its commitment. As part of the negotiations and as part of the team's willingness to take on a large, if not substantial, portion of the debt, they asked if it was possible to have, in addition, some of the really underutilized property around the fairgrounds made available to them for development, which we believe, and I think they believe, will further energize the site and actually help the overall development, bring facilities there that'll be used by patrons who go to the soccer games, patrons who use the other fairground events. So the acreage was part of the negotiations. As in every negotiation, you start at a place and you end up at a place. And we feel like this, where we ended up, was a fair negotiation that is very much in the city's interest going forward. You can look at the economic study they presented that shows the long-term economic impact of the city. We think this is just a good thing for the city. This is a very positive sports community that has embraced our other professional teams, and we think one that will embrace a soccer team, which we think also is the next, is the growing sport, and one that all Nashvillians would love to participate in.
That answers all your questions, Council Lady Allen. Thank you so much. Vice Chair Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this may be also a question for Mr. Riebling. And so a couple of people over the weekend asked me this, and I think I know the answer. I think it's been attempted to be explained, but I'm going to ask you again and see if we can really come up with the answer. So most people are saying, okay, I understand, but we have a stadium. We have Nissan Stadium that is big enough to hold the number of people that we're talking about. And I know other stadiums in other cities have done stuff with their football stadium to accommodate soccer. So in the end, what the real reason why we have to build another stadium for soccer is what? Why do we have to have another stadium?
Well, I would like to defer somewhat. I'll give you my answer, and then I think the team probably might need to answer as well. I think my understanding is that a requirement of the MLS on this go-around is that cities who are going to be considered have to have their own unique soccer-specific stadium. And that's why we went through this exercise. I think that the few places where they have allowed in NFL stadiums, it's where the ownership of the NFL team and the soccer team have been the same. which creates a different sort of structure for revenue streams and things of that nature. I mean, clearly, for this team to be successful, they need to capture revenues like naming rights, food and concessions, all of which would be very difficult to do, considering the Titans at Nissan Stadium already have the rights to all that. And I think also, just from a size perspective, we're thinking 27,500, I believe it is, where Nissan holds 70,000. So it's a cost to hold an event in that facility is much more expensive than it is in a specific stadium for soccer. So that's the reason why, we're working on this transaction. I don't know whether Mary or anybody, if they're back there, want to add to that.
Just for the viewing audience, state your name. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Mary Cavara, and I'm here on behalf of Nashville Soccer Holdings, and thank you. Pretty much the reasons are very close to what Rich has articulated, that as we talk to MLS, that all of the current and especially the teams that are kind of the finalists for the two teams are building soccer-specific stadiums. And what they would tell you is, based on their many years of experience, that trying to shoehorn into a football stadium can cause a lot of issues. Some can be as simple as the field size. There's also some safety issues where the walls are different for football than they are for a soccer game. You've got locker rooms, you've got camera angles. If you think about the suites at Nissan Stadium, they're up pretty high, and even for a soccer game, it's harder to understand what's going on. It's also important that for the fans, that the most successful teams are able to create a really successful fan experience, and we want to make sure that we can do that so you can draw the attendance so you can have a success. And the last item is that, just like a business, you need to be able to kind of control your stream of revenues. And so, like other professional sports teams, the revenue streams are important to the team being in a viable position. And although we wish we had a business model that could support 60 to 70,000 fans at each game, we don't, and we really need a smaller stadium to be successful. Thank you.
And maybe this is another question for Mary. You may want to come back.
You come back.
So I know that at least in some football stadiums, I know they put a tarp or something around the top, so they actually block off the top seating, and they actually make the sound go back down, so it makes a louder experience. Were there ever any discussions with the folks at Nissan and Titans to actually look at doing this?
There may have been discussions that predated our involvement, but I can tell you, as we talked to folks at MLS and as we looked at some of these other cities, and for example, I would tell you, Atlanta is one where they've tarped the upper deck, and so the soccer experience where they accommodate, I think, about 44,000 fans is a little bit more intimate. But in that case, you have a pretty unique situation because Arthur Blank is the owner of both the soccer team and the football team, so they can control the scheduling at the stadium as well as the other items. Also, another item in a soccer-specific stadium, you have a roof, and that enhances some of the noise and the fan experience as well as a little bit of protection during adverse weather.
Okay, and one last question. You mentioned the safety concerns in the field. Obviously, we've had soccer games at Nissan Stadium. We've just had a bunch of recent ones there with lots of people there. Were there problems with safety or with locker rooms or anything else like that that are specific to Nissan Stadium where it would have been a problem?
So from a safety perspective, I'm not aware of any significant issues. What I don't know, and that was just playing games, on kind of a one-off basis. If you're to play, 17 home games there a year, I don't know if there would be other items that could be more of an issue. I think they were able to make the locker room accommodations work. I know that, part of our information is just as we're talking to the MLS team, and again, it goes back to trying to create that experience. But I really think the bigger issues are just flat out the size of the stadium and what you're trying to do to accommodate fans and other things like that. Okay. If that helps.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And just a couple other questions. I know, Mr. Riebling, there was discussion about the 10 acres of land, and it sounds like from the director of the fairgrounds, do we have any more information on what those 10 acres are going to be at this point?
No, Councilman, that's why they're meeting tomorrow to try to get that information for you well in advance of when the council is going to consider this in early November.
Okay. Next question is, So the resolution, let's say gets deferred tomorrow and it shows up in the first meeting in November. 21 votes to pass?
A majority of those present and voting.
Okay. So, but there's also this question about if something were to happen to the fairgrounds and we were to start to demolish things, 27 votes?
Correct.
So how do they follow one another? Let's say that we were passed resolution and all of a sudden determined that we needed to demolish part of the fairgrounds to do some of this stuff and you didn't get 27 votes.
The bonds wouldn't be issued if the council did not vote to demolish whatever facilities needed to be demolished.
So in many ways, is it actually 2 votes that we've got? One on the resolution and then
Then there's
maybe on a second one?
then there's also rezoning of the
There may be
mixed
3
use
votes? All right,
development.
okay. So there's other things that.
Yes, there will be other
I
times.
understand the first one may be the most important, but I was trying to figure out, because that 27 votes is in the charter, and if something else happens, you got to get 27 votes to do some of this.
Right.
All right. 2 other questions. One, I know that there's been discussion about this, but an overall cap of Metro's obligations, I think I understand that if the whole thing just were to tank, that Metro would be on the hook for the bonds. But in terms of anything else, in terms of stadium cost, it sounds like the private developer is going to have to get involved and do this, but is there specific language, and I just haven't looked at the resolution yet, specific language that says that we're not paying any more money, that if there's other money involved in this, it's not on Metro's.
There is specific language that says that they are responsible for all of the cost overruns for the construction of the stadium. Metro would be obligated for the long-term capital needs, but as part of the deal, we've built in kind of an automatic set aside from ticket tax. Portion of the ticket tax will be set aside into a reserve account to be used for those capital expenses.
Okay, and I understand about the capital reserve, and I guess that would be my last question is, how many tickets do they have to sell in order to pay for all this, in order to make sure that, I think that we're not on the hook for, I think some of that revenue is going to go to pay off the bonds, the $4 million? But like the taxes, and I think there's something else that's in here.
They'll have a pro forma.
Okay.
I think we will get more detailed performance. I think that they're assuming, sort of 85% occupancy, ticket sales at rate, which is pretty consistent with, if you look around the newer teams in the league, they're all selling out every game.
So they're expecting, for their purposes, they're taking in about an 88% capacity rate?
85%, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. And I assume as soon as you get this information on the 10 acres, you're going to be giving it to us.
I think
so
that
we'll
the thought is that we would get a packet of, once we had all the questions from tonight and the questions from the prior meeting, is that we would get a whole set of materials and answers to the council, hopefully by the end of the week.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilman Pardue.
Yeah, I've only got a couple of questions. Well, first question is, and this constituents asked me to pass this along. What kind of upgrades are we doing to the racetrack?
Laura could probably tell it's part of that 5-year lease.
Hi. Regarding the track, we are actually negotiating a contract currently with the operator for a long-term multi-year contract of Fairground Speedway, our current promoter, Tony Formosa, and his team. So we're right in the middle of that, and he himself has committed a significant amount of money towards some improvements at the track. We also have some money set aside in the original $12 million that was allocated in, appropriated in fiscal year 17 for improvements to the fairgrounds. We've got some money that we'll be using to make improvements to the grandstand and the concourse area that support the speedway.
Okay. Now, the money that's set aside, is that Tony Formosa's money or is that Metro money?
That is Metro money that was appropriated in the capital spending plan for fiscal year 17.
Right, thank you. And one more. Rich, you may be the one to answer this question. How many non-tax properties do we have in Davidson County?
About like churches, schools, things like that, they don't pay any property tax?
Well, let's, more on the money-making side. How many non-tax properties do we have that actually make income off the taxpayers, like the Titan Stadium? Somebody's bringing in money.
Well, we have like Municipal Auditorium, Bridgestone Arena, the Ascent Amphitheater, the Nissan Stadium, First Tennessee Park. Would I leave anything out? Yeah, and then there's some properties that have gotten tax incentives over the years, which we can get you copies of all those.
Okay. Well, that's all I've got. I brought them to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Council-Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it, and glad I made it. All right, I've got limited questions. You may already have the sheet that I sent the questions around on, but if we could just review them. Have we gotten any idea of what the actual return on investment is going to be insofar as the money that we're going to set aside for long-term expenses and actual money that we can put in the general fund, et cetera? I couldn't find it.
Well, I would refer you to the impact study, economic impact study that the team prepared. I think that's the beginning basis of the overall economic impact to the city by bringing this MLS team to Nashville. That'd be probably the best source. And as it relates to the revenues that we'll generate from the seat tax to pay for capital expenditures, it starts at 50 cents a ticket and then it goes to 75 cents a ticket. So once we look at the pro formas, get the more detailed to you on that, we'll also show, sort of what pot of money will be accumulated each year and will grow over time. The goal is obviously, because it's a new facility, we won't have any major capital expenditures for a 10 to 15, 20-year period, hopefully, like in other places. So that should be a pretty good pot of money by that time.
And you'll be able to give that information to us once that perform is done?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
That's great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Is the 10 acres non-negotiable as part of the deal?
Well, it was part of the negotiated deal. I mean, when we sat down, again, if you go back to look at the structure of this transaction versus others that the city has done, in this case, the vast majority of the annual debt service falls on the team, which is not the case at any of the other facilities we've done. And so as part of that negotiation, in return for them, I said, look, we can't ask the taxpayers to come out of pocket to pay for this. So the team said, okay, well, we'll step up and we'll make the really almost all of the annual debt service payment. But we would like to have, as part of this negotiation, we would like to have another economic value for us, which we think will also help the stadium long-term by having, some retail shops there, maybe some restaurants there, and some other facilities. So it was a negotiated part of the transaction. I mean, that's kind of all I can say.
So because I'm new, and this leads me into the next question, because I'm new to the whole soccer thing other than what we've got out in Bellevue, which pales in comparison to what happens on the adult field. However, is there a history, and this may be a question for the team, is there a history in other cities with MLS in it that adjacent properties get developed by the private sector not as part of a deal? And I would think that that's an incentive or an initiative for people to want to develop adjacent property. And so is there any history
I mean, I think every deal is different. I guess so it's hard to talk about, but I think we'll work on getting you some additional information, but it's my understanding that in Minnesota, which got a recent franchise, they're doing a lot of the development around, there's a lot of development site around that facility for them. So again, I think it's, yes, it's a value to the team, but I think it also is a value to the city in that we're getting some development on that site on basically property that is underutilized, if at all. We're going to generate tax revenue from it. We're not tying up any of the tax dollars to go back to the paying of the debt. Whatever tax dollars we get are going to be used for general fund and overall improvements to the fairgrounds, which we think is a good fit. So it's, again, it's a very different structure than what we've seen before, and one that, again, we think, is in the city's best interest.
Okay, and this is a question directly from a constituent, actually three. What collateral does the team ownership bring to the table?
I mean, first of all, the team is putting lots of money into this. I mean, they're buying a franchise, which is $150 million in order to get the MLS franchise. So that's number one. Second, they're putting $25 million into the stadium's cost, which is, 10% of the stadium's cost. Matches the city's commitment to the actual building of the stadium. Three, we'll have, again, as Attorney Cooper just said, we're working on the specific guarantee language to give you more comfort, but, you'll have the team is obligated to make those payments, and we're working on guarantee language to assure that happens.
Okay, and just speak, if you will, to what happens if the team fails. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, but what happens if it does?
Well, I mean, that's, yeah. We have a facility that we will use for some other, fairgrounds can use it. We'll have a facility, but the city would have, I would expect the team to continue to make the payments on the debt. To the extent they don't, the city would have to be responsible for it.
Thank you. Those were all I had.
Thank you, Council Lady Weiner. I'm going to move us along a little bit. I'm going to call on the committee members that's in the queue. I'm going to limit you to one question at this point. Make sure that it's not a repeat question that's already been addressed. If you have additional questions, we can compile them and submit them accordingly to the Finance Department. Councilman Pulley.
So we go from 24 to 1 when it gets to my name. And I only had a couple of quick ones. I only had a couple of real quick ones.
But you were advised to submit them in advance, Councilman.
Number one, and I don't even have to have answers to them right now, but I just want to know if we have gotten any of our other professional franchises here, the Titans, the Predators, and the Sounds, to weigh in on what kind of impact a new professional team would have on them. In terms of any impact on their ticket holders or revenue or whatever.
I can say that when the MLS commissioner came to town on a side visit a few months ago, Steve Underwood representing the Titans and Sean Henry representing the Predators were at that luncheon, and both stated very strongly that they were in support of this and felt that it was good for the city and would, only had positive things to say about it. So, a little bit, incidental, but they were there and spoke in favor of the franchise.
Okay, and if I could just ask these other two, I won't ask for an answer quite yet, but
expediently.
I will. At the Fair Board meeting, we had some people ask about ticket prices, and they used a high 40s average ticket, and we know the average really doesn't take into consideration the cheap tickets or the cheaper tickets that other people could afford. So I just wonder if somebody could speak to the minimally priced tickets so that we can get a realistic picture of just exactly what somebody would be able to get into one of these venues for. And lastly, I would just ask if we could get, because I think this is important information in terms of evaluating our risk, which I think is minimal here, but the kind of income that these MLS franchises generate in comparison, maybe an average along with a minimum and a maximum from the lower and the higher ranked teams. I understand that income is really, really well, so if we could get those figures, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Pulley. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'll make a couple comments instead of questions and then maybe fire one question at the end. I did want to say, I think it's a great idea to build a smaller stadium for something like this, just because you see what some of the franchises are going through, not even soccer, just like with the Chargers and the NFL. When you have an empty stadium, it looks terrible, the marketing is bad, it just snowballs, and you're not selling any tickets. So I do think it's a great idea to use a smaller stadium and build something that'll fit the team. like the Titans, I believe that if I'm understanding correctly, the ticket tax is going to, if we need a new scoreboard in the future, that sort of thing, that's going to be those ongoing taxes that'll pay for that. Okay, that was an easy one, so I won't waste that as my question. The main thing I was going to ask about was with the 10 acres. I believe in their presentation, did they give us affordable housing was discussed in a unit count of workforce versus, lower income affordable, that sort of thing? I believe it was part of it, but I'm wondering if we have more clarity on that.
Again, we're going to work on that tomorrow when they meet to go through it, but I think what we had talked about was that a portion of the development would be for affordable housing, but specifics we'll have for you by the end of the week.
Cool. Overall, I think that's a great idea to have a mixed-use development right there. Definitely, and I know Councilman Sledge will work on that as well, but we want to make sure we get those affordable units. To the team, not to be answered today, but I would like to know, is the $4 million a reasonable amount? I know we were talking about the pro formas and that sort of thing. Is the money we're talking about getting from them every year a reasonable amount compared to other MLS cities? And then finally, I just want to make a comment, as I always do when we do these projects, about the construction jobs. Let's not forget the construction work, the massive amount that's going to be going on. We want to ensure that we've got really good, fair jobs. And, the city is dedicating a good portion of money here. And so let's not forget that as we build it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Davis. Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you. I just wanted to know about the participation as it relates to this project. Are there some clear outline goals as it relates to African Americans, women, and small businesses broken out, not just all together? I want to hear about that from beginning to end.
We're working on that with the team, so in terms of what the team's commitment will be for hiring as well, and all that will be, I hate to keep saying the same thing, but we will have that for you in detail by the end of the week, rather than just trying to answer it piecemeal, but we heard what you said.
Thank you. So will we have all that before we are asked to vote on the legislation? Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Real quick question, just to add to the second responses to the second set of questions, which is why is the per seat cost so high? If you look at 4 or 5 data points and then a lot from Europe, our own First Tennessee Park, the Nissan on an adjusted basis, San Jose and Minneapolis, which is being constructed now, have been running between $5,500 and $6,500 a seat. This is 50% above that. There are a few stadiums in the world that have cost this amount, but on a per seat basis, this is very high end. So the question is, why this per seat cost, and is it a Cadillac? Thank you.
The administration, they get that question. I see they're writing over there. Okay. Councilman Mike Freeman.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask a question. We were talking about the number of games or the public use days, and that is at 20. Is that correct? Do we know how many games, soccer games, that we played at the stadium?
There's 17 regularly scheduled games on an annual basis, plus preseason exhibition and hopefully playoff games. But the regular season is 17 home games.
Okay, so 17. So let's just use it. So call it 40 days. Does the stadium, are they going to contribute to the parking cost? Like the other vendors at the fairgrounds, they have parking costs that they have to collect to go to the fairgrounds. We have also concessions dollars that go to the fairgrounds. Are they going to be contributing to that same fund with the soccer?
I'm not sure which fund you're referring to. I'll have to get more detail on that. I know that.
Well, just to the fairgrounds. You know,
Yeah.
when I go to the annual herb sale or the annual plant sale, I pay $5 to park, and that goes to the fairgrounds. Is that going to be the same kind of thing with the stadium?
No, I believe that on game days, that parking revenue would go to the team.
Yeah. Okay, well, and the reason I asked that, because we're looking at 40 days, and that's 40 days that the fairgrounds are basically going to be shut down. Because if you've got 27, 30,000 people for a soccer, you know, we can't have, there's no flea market, there's no nothing else.
Right, and that's a scheduling issue, which we cover that in the agreements is that team has to cooperate with the fairgrounds. So obviously they wouldn't schedule a game on flea market weekends. They would do their best to not schedule a game when there's a race going on. Some of that is just common sense, reasonable people sitting down and working out the details. But I would also add that the stadium itself and all that, the concourses can be used by the fairgrounds free of charge. So when they have a flea market, they now have another whole area where they can use to rent space for the flea market event. So again, I think it's additive to what what the fairgrounds operation is doing now, and in the end will only result in more revenue for the fairgrounds long term.
Right. Well, as long as it doesn't shut down what they're operating at now. I mean, I understand we're adding a huge injection into that. Because, I mean, we all understand that. But if we shut down those 40 days.
No. This has got to work. Everybody's got to work together, again, like reasonable people. But, we know we have to. The events that have been historically at the fairgrounds are going to continue to be there, and we just have to schedule the soccer games around it. I mean, there's enough flexibility in the schedule because the soccer season really lasts from March to September, I believe, maybe even to October. So that's 17 games over a long period of time. So clearly, reasonable people can come up with ways to make that work and only enhance the fairgrounds operations instead of becoming a detriment.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate all my colleagues discussing this. And I know you're going to hear a lot more from me and everyone else in the next few weeks. A couple of quick things. I know there's some questions that had come up. Based on the economic study that was put forth to us from the University of Tennessee, the average ticket cost was $30, and I just wanted to make sure that number was out there and it's in the study. Also, I know that there was a question brought up about the cost of the stadium. Right now in the expansion round that we're in, where Sacramento is almost guaranteed a team, they are looking at 25,000 seats and looking at an estimated cost of $226 million. So I just want to make sure people knew what that was. My one question is, I wanted to get, we talked a little bit, I know Councilman Pardee touched on a little bit, about current revenues to the fairgrounds, and I just wanted to kind of get back into the record about what the current revenue is that we get from the fairgrounds.
Laura.
Madam Chair, Councilman, last year we brought in approximately $3.5 million in revenues.
And does that cover the costs? I mean, I guess the real question is is there a quote unquote profit there?
Yes, we had a slight profit last year.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to stand and tell people that I am in support of Major League Soccer here in Nashville, and I am in support of the stadium. But I do have one caveat. If we can go back in time, remember the Ascend Amphitheater project. Now, there was a percentage, and I know, Mr. Riebling, you're working on something to get to us about that, where a percentage of ticket sales went to help worthy nonprofits in the areas of here in Nashville, and I want to attach some sort of incentive. We do have a precedence for that to go towards helping lots of our good programs here, and I would like the rest of my colleagues to support me on using a small percentage of that ticket money to support local nonprofits or some infrastructure in much-needed areas. We set a precedence when we did the Ascend Amphitheater, and I'd love to have something structured similar to that. Thank you.
It's noted, Councilman. Thank you so much. This is the last one in the queue. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so with the one question, I want to make just an observation, if I may, and then I'll ask this question. I'm sitting here running the numbers. At 17 games, at 85% sellout, we're going to have a deficit of roughly $8.3 million towards the $9 million that would be due on the debt service there. Now, I realize I don't have the actual numbers with regards to the sales tax revenues or any other things that might be coming in, but that frightens me right off the bat. Well, if you take $1.75 and at times the number of seats.
Tax is one component of it, Councilman.
Right, but I'm just saying that just on the $1.75 piece of it, we have a pretty substantial deficit. So I don't know, when I sit down and look at the pro formas, so here is my question. If we run another 8, 9, 10, where we have a declining sales tax revenue base, and if in fact it impacts the stadium, it in fact impacts our schools, it in fact impacts our city the way that happened before, have we looked at that? Because I think we need to be prepared for I mean, we've had unprecedented growth. I don't think anybody can argue with that. I'm also not arguing necessarily against the team. What I'm arguing, or not even arguing about, what scares me about this deal is that I haven't seen yet, and I realize you guys say it's being worked on, but I haven't seen that the city's liability has been removed in totality here. And so when I just start running numbers, and I know I get the looks from over there at the table, and that's all fine, but when I start running the numbers, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we're going to hit it if we have a pro forma at 85%. And so I'm more than willing to listen and understand, but right now it's not there.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and obviously you need to see numbers to understand it better, and we will get those to you. But the key here is remember that under the state law, you're able to capture all of the state sales tax that is collected from the games, which is a unique feature of state law. So that makes up the difference to get you closer to that $4 million number in the first 5 years, and then $3 million after that 5 years. But I say that you need to see the numbers, and we'll get those to you.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I work. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. I hope this special hearing was valuable and many of your questions were answered. As you can see, the pieces are still moving as it relates to this proposal. I ask that any questions that you have, if you can channel those through me or Mr. Jameson, so that we can collectively be on the same page as we continue to vet this proposal moving forward. This meeting is adjourned. We're going to roll into our Budget and Finance Committee meeting shortly afterwards. I want to remind you that CIB requests are due today. Also want to remind you to make sure you check your emails as it relates to the logistics for the transit presentation tomorrow. And this adjourns the special meeting.